Hello, this is Run the Numbers. My name is Jason. Today we're doing a video part of our warm-up series. That means we're on the go, we're in motion on the busy and kind of loud streets here of Los Angeles, California, but sunny, a nice day, so we're enjoying it. We're putting this video here out as part of our 100 video challenge. That's to make sure we get 100 videos out in 100 days. And that's a self-imposed kind of a challenge I've made for myself so that we get a whole lot of content, all this to help you on your personal finance journey. There's been a whole lot of videos I've already put, but I want to put even more out there to help you. Some of the videos that I've already put have already started to kind of talk about, and there's been something of a trend or a thread that I want to continue on, and that is a discussion about side hustles. Now, I've mentioned about different things about side hustles, but my most recent video, and I'll put the link in the description to this video here that you're watching, the most recent video, which was about getting started, fastest way to get started to have a side hustle. In that video, I mentioned a couple different examples of ways I got started to have a side hustle, to have different side hustles. And I mentioned in those examples, how I had very little ramp up, kind of close to zero in terms of what the amount of ramp up was for those side hustles. And I thought to give a little bit more detail and go through a little bit more as to the thought process as to one in particular that I'll go into in this video. Maybe in other videos I'll do other examples, but in this video I want to go into a little bit more in-depth with the example of being a city tour guide. In my case, I worked for a company called City Running Tours. That was in the city of San Francisco where I lived at the time. Now, I did that for quite some time, maybe I think it was a couple years, and I began that way back in 2015. So I want to set the scene as to kind of what was going on in my life and what I was doing, and I want to give a little bit as to the thought process as to why I decided to take on this side hustle. What were some of the things I was looking to benefit? What, of course, were some of the costs, and what were the things that were not so fun about it. So I want to give a fair and balanced way to view this particular example, and I want it to serve as this sort of springboard, a jumping off point for you to, yes, consider this one example that I went through, so a real world, real life, nothing hypothetical, but also, could this example be something that you could take over into your life and figure out, is there, if not the same exact side hustle I'm talking about, something similar that you could kind of think through and think, okay, actually that would really make sense, and that could be something that I could explore for myself as a side hustle that I would want to do. Okay, so with that being said, let's jump right into setting something of the context. What was the scene here when I first started to take on the side hustle of being a tour guide, a city tour guide? That this in particular was for running tour. So I was literally running, finding other runners and guiding them through, running them on a route through the city of San Francisco. It was an established company. I didn't start this company, of course. I just simply got on board as one of the guides. And why did I do all this? Well, for one, I enjoy running, and I definitely did at the time. So I should say, as far as when this was about 2015, I believe, was the very, very first time I reached out to City Running Tours, and they were getting something started in the city of San Francisco. I think they're more popular in other spots in New York and just other areas, but they were getting started in San Francisco, and it just kind of became this thing that worked out well, that yeah, I very much enjoy running now and enjoyed running then. So I knew as I mentioned in the previous video, as far as what it would take to ramp up, I was already a runner. I already kind of had the skills that I could kind of keep up with, if not your average runner. I could definitely keep up with those folks that might be sort of extra fast and would want to cover a whole lot of ground and run some of these routes either extra fast or tack on some extra miles. I could handle that. So that's to say, on the physical level, I enjoyed it and I could do it. Let me mention as to kind of what were some of the other elements for things going on for me professionally. So 2015, I was right in the deep, kind of right in the thrust of starting up a startup. I could get way into the details in the explanation of what this startup was, what I was trying to accomplish, what kind of skill sets I was trying to develop, all these elements. I'll leave that for another day, but I'll just mention that I was working on a startup. It happened to be called Bibber. It was really to create, as the name Bib in Bibber would have you maybe think through, as to how you clip on a bib in a, say, marathon, half marathon, any of these kind of amateur athletic events, these race events. It really, I was catering to that world, and specifically what I was trying to build was a secondary marketplace. So that's to say, something similar to like how StubHub is a secondary marketplace to all the major, sporting events, as an example, as to some of the StubHub offerings that you may know. In my case, it was athletic events, and its secondary marketplace is to say I was hoping to establish something of a platform for you to buy and sell and transfer your ownership, your bibs. Again, Bibber was the name of it, for entry into these athletic events like marathons and triathlons and kind of all that area of fitness that I was very much interested in on a personal level, and then it became, of course, then a professional level. So that's to say, I was very much immersed in this world, and so my hope gaining this side hustle was actually to be able to reach more of my customers and have this other, maybe more creative way to talk to different people in this space. Of course, people that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to reach and to have their opinion, to understand their opinions, and to basically do something of user research. So I was gaining access to international, because a lot of people who would do these city running tours, they'd come in and they were tourists from Europe or from other parts of the States. So it wasn't just international, but other people from all over that really weren't in my circles, of course, because of the geographic reasons, also for just other reasons, people coming into onto my radar. And so, yeah, I was definitely, this was the whole context to say the things I was getting from this side hustle was definitely something to benefit in this professional sense of starting the startup, being able to understand my users a whole lot more, having this as, again, a creative approach, where literally I had a captivated audience. I'm guiding these individuals on the run, so they're literally needing to stick with me, and I could kind of at different down points kind of say, hey, I've got this other thing going on other than being a tour guide for you here, and this other thing might be of interest to you. I just want to know what you think of this. And so it was definitely kind of an interesting way, to gain this feedback. So there was definitely part of this side hustle where that was very much something that that was intentional. So another element to why some of my thought process to why I wanted to have this side hustle, well, I liked that it was very flexible. And I mean that to say I had the ability to pick and choose, when and if I wanted to take on, a particular group or just a one-on-one or small tour guide event, that kind of thing, I could accept and say I was available, or say no, I'm gonna pass. Maybe use one of the other guides for this one, and so it had a lot of flexibility in terms of I could have the ability to take on work when I wanted it, and I could have the ability, of course, then to accept as many and as much as many events and as many opportunities as I saw fit. So that was definitely something that was a benefit. So as you think of side hustles for yourself, think of maybe a possible side hustle that has a low barrier to entry for you. And of course, maybe that could be a low barrier for anyone, but definitely for you, that kind of makes it so that it's definitely not an issue where you are like, if I need to take on this side hustle, that's going to mean all kinds of commitment that I don't want to get into and all this. So that was definitely something that I thought to share with you is that element to it. I should mention, I was happy to do this work at the time. I think I was paid fairly. I don't even remember what I was paid, to be honest. But I remember, I would have been happy doing it for far less. In that, I saw just the value in being able to do all the things I mentioned to help my startup. Talking with all these potential users, kind of seeing it as just like a sort of a long way, long road of sorts to and creative way to do user research for the startup, as well as I enjoyed doing the runs. As far as just I needed it. I thought hey, I'd get out and do this run on my own. Might as well have other people to join me, and I could tell them about all the facts of the city of San Francisco as I went along. And so, and as you might suspect, I like to talk at different points. So it definitely fit my personality. That's to say, and so this is to say, would I have done the work and enjoyed the work if at zero pay? Who's to say there? But definitely part of the equation here was I got paid for something that definitely I enjoyed, and I kind of at no point even argued about what the actual rate of pay was. So there's that element to it. I should go over, as I promised, some of the parts that weren't so fun, and you could think of it as the cost. So as you might think of a side hustle, and in this particular example, it might relate to you, where there were some real downsides in that a lot of the different events and a lot of the different runs were early morning, because a lot of times it was for some tourists that were in town for a conference that wanted to do the run prior to the hours that they would need to do their networking and conference hours and that sort of thing. So they wanted to do sometimes like a 5 a.m. or a 6 a.m. run. And also I would have to meet at the lobby of their hotel a lot of the times, which means I had to get there, travel to where I lived, to the hotel that they were at. And this is to say there was all kinds of reasons where sometimes I had to wake up at 4 in the morning, wake up at 5 in the morning to be able to meet them for their early morning run. And I'm not gonna lie, that was painful. That was definitely hard to do as a young 20-something-year-old. It was hard to be able to plan for waking up and be able to be able to bring your A game and really bring what you wanted to it to have a successful, of course, a good experience for these. I'm gonna turn around here, but have a successful, guided experience for these guests, but also have my mental faculties with me to be able to accomplish the things I wanted. As I mentioned, gain some a bit of research as far as customers for the startup I was thinking, and kind of all the things that you needed to make sure you were up and at 'em. So that was a little painful, but it was definitely something I felt I could handle, and it was definitely that's a little bit tough. So if you're in a situation where you're like me, this day and age, where you're a little bit older, maybe you have kids, waking up at 4 in the morning, being able to, or not being able, but being asked to do something super physical, um, right off the bat, have the mental faculties with you at that hour. So that's to say, if you have to be up till 1 in the morning because your kid is sick, that sort of, it's definitely a different picture now for in my life now. But at the time, I was I was young, I was single, I was in my physical prime, so to speak. I don't know. Maybe I still am. Who knows? But this is to say, I was definitely in a different spot. So those things that weren't so fun, waking up at that hour, sometimes the that element to it was fine. I would say another element, as I'm giving this fair and balanced, something that wasn't so fun about it. Sometimes you'd have some awesome people you'd run with, and sometimes you'd have just people that, for whatever reason, you didn't vibe with. So some of the guests weren't mean or rude, but just like weren't all that friendly. So my hope to gain all this sort of like user research, I could tell it just like wouldn't go over well. So there were some times where I was just like, look, I'm just gonna kind of do this the kind of the tour guide experience. Hope they have do all I could have them have a good time with that, but not lean into the other parts of like, hey, let you with wondering if you could tell me about this other thing I've got going on and get your reaction, that sort of thing. There's times I just didn't bother there. So in that regard, it kind of like didn't meet the things I was hoping for, and that was disappointing. So yeah, there's that element to it. You definitely have to be something of a people person. So as you consider the side hustle of your own, if you're not having it fit with your own personality, if you're not a people person, maybe your side hustle shouldn't require where you need to be where you need in your side hustle to be a people person. So that might be obvious, but it's definitely something maybe to put top of mind here. Okay, so I gave you a whole lot of details here about this side hustle. I went through a whole lot of the positives, went through some of the sort of negatives. Hopefully you can take this into the things that you might think through. There's of course a whole lot of elements of to like, is this something of a creative outlet? Is this something where you want it to be completely unrelated to your primary job? As you could tell, I kind of had this purposely where it kind of dovetailed a bit into the other work I was doing, kind of creating something of a starting a startup, and the elements there, and how it kind of felt like, of course, it had this dual purpose. If that's something that you want, then yeah, think through that. If it's something that you want to avoid, if you want something completely divorced from kind of other endeavors you have, and it's just purely this thing that's siloed on its own, that might be a little bit of a different story. And so it might have the elements of how tough it is to get that job. I had it where I could get this job because I was kind of already plugged into so many of the different elements of this community of runners and of the others, so I connected well to the people who are running the city running tours, just because we kind of all knew the same people. And so when I, then asked to be one of the guides, it was an easy sort of ramp into that and an easy way to do that. So if you want something completely outside of your passions, as far as getting started and in needing to know different people, that could be something you need to consider. All right, so I gave you a whole lot of detail, possibly way too much. I'm going to leave you there and possibly give other details in other videos to other side hustles. So I hope you enjoyed this one. All right, gotta run.